Hello, I'm Dr. Ashish Bhatia, and we are going to talk about the new truSculpt Flex today. And this is one of my favorite presentations, mostly because they featured me on the cover here. So I'm a dermatologist, board certified dermatologist, practicing in the suburbs of Chicago, also an associate professor of clinical dermatology at Northwestern University. And I spend a lot of time actually doing research on new aesthetic devices and lasers, as well as practicing. So the muscle sculpting market is a huge opportunity. In fact, fitness itself is a huge business. Uh, there's $595 billion spent last year on fitness alone. Compare that to the automobile industry in the US, which there was only 84 billion spent there. So you can see how big of a business this is. Even smartphones were only 355 billion in the US. Fitness was 595 billion. And it's really driven by strong psychological beliefs. Almost 80% of Americans feel unhappy with how their body looks. 88% of women and 65% of men are influenced by body images that they see in the media. And so this drives people to want to have a better body. However, the issue is there's a big gap between the desire to have a great body and getting the results and what you have to do to get those results. And even though there's 60 million health club members in the US, 30% of adults actually engage in the amount of recommended training. So there's a huge gap here. And some of the barriers to getting out there and taking care of yourself and doing what you need to do are discipline, desire, time, and education. The most common reason cited for not making it to the gym is because people are too tired, or they don't have the time, don't have the motivation, feel too old, or work gets in the way. However, they spend a ton of money on getting fit. So this just doesn't translate. Number one technology in fitness in 2019 was wearable technology like Fitbits, Apple Watch. Also, number two was group training. Number three was investing in high intensity interval training. The problem is people just don't get out there and do it. And, there's an increasing amount of growth in body shaping procedures in the world. There's about a 15% growth every year. And we can take advantage of this because consumers are seeking better solutions. Because if they can't get out there to diet and exercise, or if they are and they're not getting the results, well, they still want to have a better body and they want to increase their muscle mass, their strength, their endurance. Some people can't exercise because of post-injury issues, and they want to sometimes break through the plateau that they've reached if they do actually get out there and train. And they want to really combat the signs of aging. That's what it comes down to, aging and looking good. So increasing metabolism, decreasing pain, and increasing their range of motion. So there's been a ton of muscle sculpting technologies out there. Actually, back in the 80s was the first time we saw it. There were these muscle stimulators that people could use, and they could use them at the gym. Then there were the home belts that people could use. Then in the 1990s, muscle stimulation was actually first used in medicine. Back in the 2000s, when body shaping came into vogue in aesthetics with the CoolSculpt machine there, and then followed shortly with the truSculpt ID, which we'll talk about, actually the whole truSculpt family. And then M-Sculpt was the first muscle sculpting device used in aesthetics. And now we introduce the truSculpt Flex with MDS technology in 2019. So what is truSculpt Flex? Well, it's this device that allows you to stimulate individual muscle groups. And it's been FDA cleared to do this to tone the abdomen, buttocks, and thighs. And this allows you to place these handpieces where you need them and customize the treatments for the goals of the individual being treated. It also gives you very targeted technology and targeted energy control. So with that, you can place and selectively improve the tone of certain muscles. And you can do 8 areas simultaneously. So this is the most of any device. And there's 3 treatment modes. There's the prep tone and sculpt. We'll get into that in a minute. And you can treat a lot of patients quickly here. And so this differentiates your practice from all the other practices. So how does it work? Well, essentially, there's a positive and negative electrode, and these pairs of electrodes are what actually cause the muscle to contract. They send energy into that muscle group and cause contractions. And you can see you can actually apply this to 8 muscle groups simultaneously because there's 16 applicators. So you're getting direct bioelectrical stimulation of the muscles. And what happens is the polarity changes, and so you can cause the muscles to contract and relax very quickly. And then there's these TruGel pads that are applied between the hand pieces and the skin to increase conduction and actually make the hand pieces stick where you put them. And this uses truControl technology, which customizes the delivery to each muscle group, and it gives you safe and consistent results. And MDS stands for Multi-Directional Stimulation. So it gives you these 3 modes where you can treat 8 pairs of muscle groups at a time. So how does this normally happen in the body? Well, what usually happens is the brain sends a signal to the motor neurons, and these are usually less than 1 milliamp, and that causes a muscle group to contract. Well, the truSculpt Flex does the same thing right to the motor neurons, but it sends the signal through the skin right to the muscle group. And this can be up to 30 milliamps. So even if the person is larger, the current has to travel farther, and there's a lot of resistance, you can turn it up and be able to still access that muscle group through the TruGel pads and cause a contraction. This is called bioelectrical stimulation. And there's 2 parts to this. There's the carrier frequency, which allows for selective targeting of the motor neurons. And then there's the beat frequency range, which determines how the muscle contracts, how many times beats per second. And you can control this for every channel. And since there's not a true load, like when you're lifting a weight, there's no lactic acid buildup. So, you don't have to worry about lactic acid doses. But on the other hand, there is delayed onset muscle soreness, and that's because these are new activities. Just like when you work out and lift for the first time, usually not a day, but 2 days later, you get up and you feel sore. And the same thing happens when you get on the truSculpt Flex or truSculpt Flex. So you can either have sequential contractions or you can have these cross contractions where the muscle groups next to each other are being stimulated. And so you get these diagonal contractions. And so you can change things up tremendously, cause that kind of muscle confusion, which leads to growth. And when you look at it, these are the 3 modes. The prep mode, which is kind of like a warm-up, consistent warm-up exercises. The tone mode, which gives you these long, slow contractions followed by fast, rapid contractions. And then the sculpt mode, which gives you a lot more of the fast contractions or slow contractions first, and then the fast contractions afterwards. So the prep mode gives you more of this twisting warm-up motion, stretches the muscle, and builds a tolerance to the muscle contractions that are induced by the device. The tone mode contracts the muscles, holds it at the point of exhaustion, and then relaxes it. This increases strength and endurance. And finally, the sculpt mode. This really focuses on deep, fast, sequential contractions of the muscle to boost up your basal metabolic rate and build muscle mass. So depending on what you want to achieve, you can choose a different mode. And what this also lets you do, unlike any of the other devices, is you get muscle isolation. You can target very specific muscles without the assistance of the surrounding muscles. So you get much more focused, targeted contractions. And you can do up to 20 contractions per second. So this is more than you could humanly do yourself. But you can actually adjust that intensity and give a personalized treatment to each patient. It's a 45-minute treatment, and the Flex produces the equivalent of up to 54,000 crunches per treatment that you do. So it's really just more than you can humanly achieve. So even people that are very fit that want to take it to the next level, we get them on this. On the other hand, we take patients that are very averse to exercise and help them build their core strength and strengthen different muscle groups and stability. So we can use it for a lot of things for a range of people. And then you can actually alter the contraction direction the way you want and customize that part of the treatment. And even though you get muscle fatigue, remember there's no lactic acid buildup. There's been a lot of white papers and studies. One of these white papers actually showed that we built about a 30% muscle mass with patients that got a series of treatments. And there was another one that really compares the HiFem technology to the BEMS technology. So look out for this one. You can ask your rep for it. And then there's actually been studies that are more functional in nature to decrease lower back pain, increase endurance, and increase muscle flexibility. And finally, there was a study done that shows the increase in muscle growth and repair. And here's one of the ultrasounds from one of the studies. Here you can see the yellow line actually represents the fat thickness. And from the before to the after, you can see a 25% reduction in the fat thickness. But at the same time, you got a 30% reduction in the muscle thickness, which is the red zone. And here's a real example. This Dr. Samanek in looking at this patient who's already really fit but wants more definition. And you can see 4 weeks after 4 treatments, person's pretty cut. 8 weeks after 4 treatments, it got even better, and there's just incredible results at 12 weeks after 4 treatments. But this isn't our average patient, at least not in my population. Yeah, this is more the average population. And you can see, even here, just toning those abdominal muscles pulls them in. And then you get more definition around the flanks as well. So people get a noticeable difference after a series of 4 treatments. And some people do 6, some people do 4. We go back and forth, and some people just do better with one or the other. So if you don't have the results that you want at 4, we boost it up to 6 treatments. Here's another patient, pretty average patient for us, who you can see got considerable tightness of the muscles and improved definition in the abs and the obliques. Another patient, very common patient for us, with a lot of toning of the abdominal recti muscle as well as the obliques. Now butts, butts are another area that we treat a lot. And you can see what happens, I believe this Dr. Ronan's patient, is you actually get a lift of the butt and more projection of the butt because you've toned that muscle to lift and protrude. And this is one of our patients. We actually did the measurements on this patient. You can see the abs have actually tightened and come in, which has really resulted in a 1.6 centimeter reduction in circumference there. But then you can see on the right-hand side here that there's been an increase in projection of the buttocks. So a lift and an increase, which is great. Patients love that. Another patient of ours, same thing. The abdominals have tightened up and decreased the circumference around the belly, but the entire butt has been projected and lifted. And, everybody likes that. And then here's another example of a patient who you can see, if you follow the sacrum, the bottom of the sacrum, you can see the buttocks have been lifted and then tightened. And, that's a really nice result and effect. And this is 3 weeks after 4 treatments. So, the truSculpt Flex is really kind of the newest device in our armamentarium. And it's been a great device for us because it's great to use alone, both for functional and aesthetic medicine, but also we use it a lot in combination with the truSculpt ID. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So for more questions or even for seeing some before and afters and some treatments, you can go to our Instagram at Batia Derm. And now let's take some questions. Okay, we have some questions on muscle sculpting. So first question, can you combine the truSculpt Flex with other body sculpting devices like the truSculpt ID or the truSculpt 3D? Yes. In fact, in our practice, that's what we do the most is the patients that convert over to the Flex are really a lot of the patients that have had the truSculpt ID. So they've decreased the fat layer. They can see their muscles. Now they're motivated. They want to get more cut. We get them onto the truSculpt Flex. However, there are a lot of patients that just want stability or better core strength, or golfers that want better core strength. So for them, a lot of times we just start them on the truSculpt Flex by itself. Next question, why do the results improve over time? Well, that's a good question. Because the reason is because here, just like exercise, it's not, you can't just exercise once and expect to see great muscle building and definition. It takes consistent exercising to achieve that, right? Same thing here. Here, except the device is doing the work for you. So you lay there, we attach it to the muscle groups, we turn it on, and after one treatment, you feel sore, just like a good workout. But then it's after the second, third, fourth treatment, you start seeing the visible results. Some people see it early on if they're very lean, but most people, it takes a little while to see the toning, and the results keep getting better and better. Next question. How many areas can you treat at the same time? Well, there's 16 electrodes here, and you have to pair them up for each muscle group. So there's a red and the black, positive, negative. And so you can actually treat 8 individual muscle groups. So the most common treatments we do are the abdominals and then the obliques. That takes up 8 hand pieces. And then we do thighs pretty commonly. That can take up 8 hand pieces, or buttocks, which can also take up 8 hand pieces. So those are the most common areas we treat. Next question. Who's the right patient candidate for this treatment? Well, there's really 2 groups, right? One is people that want to get more cut, more ripped, have increased muscle mass. The other is people that just want good muscle tone and stability. And so both patients can benefit. It's just you have to identify what they're there for, what their goals are, what they want to achieve, and you can help them do it. Last question. How has this enhanced your body sculpting business? Well, like I said, this is really teamed up nicely as a next step after truSculpt ID. And now, the first group of patients that we had in that we demoed the device on were actually trainers. And it was funny because the trainers are all like, oh, I'm in great shape. I don't need this. Yeah, this can't hurt me. But, we actually were able to take those trainers to the next level without hurting them. So, increased muscle strength in muscle groups that they were having trouble toning and building, and increase their endurance. And now we've also been using it really a lot for these patients that just need more stability or want to increase their core strength, or any other muscle group in the body. The only place we don't really use it is over the chest, over the pectoral area, just because the heart's there and we don't want to send repetitive signals over that area. But otherwise, we really use it in many different areas of the body. Thank you for the great questions, and see you next time.
Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Tal Humes, board-certified physician in the United States, and I have an all non-surgical cosmetic practice. I'm going to talk with you today about truSculpt Flex and how we're using it in our practice. We talked earlier when we were talking about truSculpt ID about the different types of body sculpting, right? Because some patients are coming in for fat reduction, some patients are coming in for skin laxity or skin texture issues, while other patients are looking to fully contour their body and tighten up and tone their muscles. With truSculpt Flex, we're talking about that toning side. In the past, our traditional ways to get that body that we want is to diet and exercise. And yet, even with exercise, patients don't want to go in and do it, but it's a huge business. In fact, almost $600 billion is spent on fitness alone. Interestingly enough, only 7 out of 10 people who buy memberships to gyms actually go. So it's 30% of people who are going in and working on their fitness. Whether or not they're eating well, hard to know. And yet, in an age of social media, our expectations is we don't go to the gym and we look just like this. So how is it that we can get these bodies that we desire without having to work hard at it? And who are our patients? Well, my truSculpt Flex patients are the same as my truSculpt ID patients. They're patients of all ages, they're patients of all genders, and again, we're able to treat patients with all skin types. We still have the moms and the dads coming in. Why? Because moms, maybe after having a baby, still don't feel like their body is looking the way they want, so they want fat reduction, they want muscle stimulation, and then dads don't want to look unfit. Everyone wants to get ready for the summer and have that bathing suit ready body, and they want confidence and overall to look and feel better. What we also have with our flex patients are the patients who are deconditioned or who need to strengthen. They may be patients who need some sort of rehab either before or after a surgery. They may be patients who, as they age, aren't as strong as before. And what's great is that we can use this treatment in order to help them strengthen their bodies. My reasons for being a flex patient are just like my reasons for being a truSculpt ID patient. I wanted to get my body back into shape after having these two little ones. They're adorable. I love them, but I also want to still have the body I want. And I want to feel comfortable not only in my clothes, but in a bathing suit when I'm heading to the pool or the beach. I think it's important to look at truSculpt Flex and how it compares to other devices and what kind of results we can get. So with truSculpt Flex on ultrasound measurement, it was found that there was a 30% increase in muscle mass following a series of flex treatments. This compares with other muscle stimulating devices such as Emsculpt, where on their studies on ultrasound as well as MRI, they showed a 16.5% increase in muscle mass. With truSculpt Flex, we also see a 25% contraction in fat. And with Emsculpt, there was a 20% contraction in fat on their studies. With truSculpt Flex, we're able to do two areas of the body at once. So we can treat abdomen as well as glutes at the same time, or you could do, biceps and triceps at the same time, depending on what areas our patients want to treat. So the nice part is being able to treat two areas at once means that our patients don't have to spend extra time with us. They don't have to double up on their time to treat two body areas. We also have multiple modes on the device, which help us really customize the treatment. So instead of our patients getting, in a sense, used to that treatment, meaning that the muscles have memory and the muscles get used to the movement, we can customize the treatments to our patient in order that their muscles do not form that memory. And because of that, we can get even better toning and you can see even better results than you can if you only had one mode. Here's a patient of Dr. Clements. This is a great result. So this is a patient before and after 4 treatments. And here you can see that we have tightened up the muscles. You can see that she has much more definition. She's much more toned. Did she look good before? Yes. Here she hasn't done any fat reduction. This is muscle stimulation only. Here's another patient of Dr. Clements where you can see the before and after, and I love that she did this with her yoga pants on, but you can see how the glutes have lifted. If you look at these green lines, you can see how the glutes have lifted before and after treatment. And again, this is after just 4 treatments of flex. Now with this, these treatments are done twice a week for 2 weeks. So this is a result that a patient is seeing after 2 weeks. In fact, I know that this result was shown after about 2.5 weeks on the patient's photos, and they're going to continue to get even better results over time. Here you have one of my patients, and you can look at her and you can see where maybe when you're first looking, you think, I would love to do a little bit of truSculpt ID and reduce the fat on her abdomen. That's not what she wanted to do. She really wanted to work on things from a flex standpoint. So she wanted to go ahead and she wanted to treat just her muscles. So we did muscle stimulation on her. We did her full abdomen, and we were able to put some of the paddles, we put them on the obliques as well, because we don't want our patients to come out looking like SpongeBob SquarePants. We want them to be nice and contoured. That's why we want to treat the obliques as well as the abdominals. And here she is before and after a series of 4 treatments. So she did these treatments again twice a week for 2 weeks, and these are her results after 2 weeks. We know we'll continue to see results on her as we space this out further. Another one of our patients, this is a gentleman who's had liposuction in the past, and he came in and he said, I feel like from a fat standpoint, my fat has improved. But I feel like I don't have the same strength in my core, and I also don't have the same definition as I did before. So we went ahead and treated him. This is before and after 4 treatments, and you can see how he has much more definition than he did in this previous photo. So here he is after 4 treatments, again, 2 weeks in, and showing great results. This is an incredibly fit patient. She looks great to start. But when you look at her, what you can see is that we are getting more muscle definition, and she's feeling more comfortable in her bathing suit. This is important because our goal for our patients is to get them the results that they desire. Remember, I've said before, I don't sell services, I sell outcomes. So when they come in and they want to see more definition, even if I think they're in great shape, I want to make sure that I'm treating them properly. Here's another, this is a male coming in. This is one of Dr. Desai patients. You can see on this patient that he again was also fit, but following 4 treatments, here he is, and you can see that he has much more muscle definition. And then here's one of her patients where you can see how the glutes have really lifted nicely. So if you look at where the arrow is, this is before and after. And that's what this patient's goal was. She wanted to lift her glutes so she looks better in her jeans as well as in a bathing suit. And here again, looking at these lines, you can see where the folds of the glutes have lifted up, and this patient has a much more round and contoured buttocks. What's really nice for these patients is seeing those changes. Here's one of the Cutera patients that was treated in the study. And what you see here is a patient who has a great physique. She looks great before, looks even better afterwards. And you're going to have patients who come in who want to look even better than they did before. We talked earlier when we were talking about truSculpt ID about how some of the dads have a dad bod and we don't really want that. That's what I'm showing you here when I circle this gentleman's abdomen, right? That protruding belly on a dad isn't necessarily the physique he wants or the desired physique in general for men. But here you can see after a series of 4 treatments, he has a much more toned and honestly better bathing suit looking body than he did before. So this for him was after 4 treatments. And then here you have another very thin gentleman who after 6 treatments looks great. Now you may be looking at these bodies and saying, well, I didn't look like that to start with. And you've seen we have some larger bodies. Maybe this one's a little bit larger than this gentleman. So we're able to treat different body habituses as well as, again, we said all genders. Here we have a patient who prior to treatment, this is after, so you saw, this is actually me, and you saw my picture. So I did truSculpt ID, I did one of those, and then I got to here. I still was not satisfied with how my body looked because it doesn't look like my body prior to pregnancy. I went ahead and I was treated with 4 treatments of truSculpt Flex, and you can see I definitely have a better result. Right? So I looked great, and these treatments can be done alone. So truSculpt ID, I had a great result. I was really happy, but I can get better. So I went ahead and was treated with truSculpt Flex, and I have an even better treatment. Do I have to do ID in order to get a great result with Flex? Absolutely not. What we know is that these devices are great on their own, and they're also great when you combine them together. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk with me about truSculpt Flex. I look forward to hearing from you if you have any questions. Bye.